All right, hello, here we go. So for today's project, I want you to focus on contouring. Now, it's not contouring like you're putting on makeup. I mean, I do that too, I gotta look good. But what we're focusing on this time around is contouring. It's the outline of an object. We did some blind contouring before, but now I want you to start thinking about how we can add shadow and shading to an object in specific locations. So I have this jelly jar and I just spray painted it white. What I like about it is you can see it has facets going around it, these straight edges. Even though it is totally a cylinder, right, you can kind of see it has these little edges. We can use this as a really good example of how to properly shade. If you felt like with your previous projects, maybe your shadow or your highlights were kind of in the wrong places, this is a really good way to think about it. So I'm going to set this off on the side. I've got a wide array of a pencil set here. I'm going to go really extreme with an 8B. Really, really light over here. Let's grab like a 2H, and I think that's all I'm gonna need. All right, so I'm gonna start drawing with my 2H nice and lightly, and again, I'm gonna draw my little jelly jar here. So he's kind of a cylinder. I'm gonna draw a little bit darker than I normally would, just so it comes up on the camera. Kind of a cylinder, again, big long strokes here. I wanna make sure I get that comparative measurement in there. Let's see, 1, 2, 3. So it's 1 wide, 2 tall. Perfect. 1, 2. There we go. Gotta pull it down. So just a light sketch. There's kind of my cylinder. I'm thinking in 3 dimensions, right? Now, it comes down a little bit. There's a lip to this jar right here. So let's just bring it on down a little bit. And then right about here, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, kind of goes around, right? But again, notice how you see the shadows. It starts to be really, really light on this side, and that shadow starts to creep in. You can almost imagine if you had a grayscale, right? If I were to actually make what's called a value scale, I could go from really, really dark over here until I get to kind of a medium, and then eventually nothing at all, right? I could take that and slice that up into pieces, and I could get like a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, or a 5. I could stretch that all the way from 1 to 10 if I wanted to, right? So let's imagine taking these and placing them on our little object over here, right? So with that contouring in mind, thinking about how this object functions, right? I know that this whole side right here, this whole side, right, is going to be much, much lighter. So what I can do is kind of add layers of shadowing. I'm going to set that off on the side. I can add layers of shadowing. So I could give this entire thing 1 overall value. In this case, it's a 2H. I'm just using the side of the pencil. 1 overall even value. I could use my finger to kind of smudge that out a little bit. I'm not worried about my sketch lines. I'm not worried about erasing anything. 1 overall value. Let's go back to our pencils real quick. I lied before. We're going to go ahead and climb on down. Let's grab maybe an HB. That'll work. This time I'm going to color everything that isn't highlighted. So everything that isn't this side, or maybe a little bit of the lip right there. You can go in a different direction if you wanted to. In essence, this is basically cross-hatching. That's really what we're doing. But we're doing cross-hatching, only this time we're doing it with shading. If you happen to mess up, of course, you can always grab your eraser. That works just as well. I'm going to go right to that edge. And again, try to keep it as even as you can. And avoid the places that you don't want any darker. Okay? Same deal. Let's walk on down our spectrum here. I'm going to grab maybe a 2B, or not to be. It's an art joke. And again, we're going to go ahead and shade. And we're applying another coat and another coat. Anywhere that I want shadow to be, or not to be. And again, even coats. Don't worry about the edges. We'll clean those up in a little bit. And again, I'm thinking about these facets, right? Where was that line at? It's right about here. Again, I'm just using the side of my pencil here to get a wider stroke. If you're using the tip of your pencil, you're gonna get lines. I want shades, so I'm using the side of my pencil. Okay, you can kind of see 1, 2, 3. Now we're into the 3rd row. Let's just keep on keeping on here. Let's jump down to maybe a 4B. Sounds pretty good. Again, side of the pencil. Slowly adding more and more shadow. Notice I'm kind of inverting for the inside. I want the shadow on this side and the highlight on that side. We'll talk more about that later on. Notice also that there's very little detail here. I mean, very little. That's okay. I'm thinking three-dimensionally right now. That's all I'm focusing on. When you're drawing, try to focus on those little steps along the way. Just keep going down the list here. This is a 6B. That'll work. Again, just drawing that line, that facet. Choke up a little bit here. There we go. Notice that I'm kind of staying away from the drawing. You don't want to get your hand on it or else it's going to smudge all over the side of your hand. That's no good. Notice also that I'm not randomly jumping over back to a light area. If it's light, I want to leave it light, right? I don't want to go and muddy this up any more than it already is. All right, and then finally, we're on our last value here. This is the darkest I go is an 8B. Yours might stop sooner than this. That's okay, it doesn't matter. You might also have a charcoal pencil in your pack. If you do, that is very dark as well. It's a little smudgy, but that might be a good route to go if you need a really, really dark value. Again, just using the side, right? Now, here's some cleanup tips. The background of the light side is always going to be very dark, okay? You don't need an outline, just darken that background, and that's what we call juxtaposition. Lighter on this side, darker on this side. The more extreme those are, the more it's going to feel like it's kind of pushing that background away, and it's going to really make this object pop. Next time you're looking at like a piece of still life in a museum or something, think about the background. It's often forgotten about. Look at how much that pops out of there, right? Starting to look kind of like a Mario warp pipe or something. Get those facets there. Not really worried about anything else right now. Just taking my time. Let my mind kind of wander. This side here is vice versa, right? I want to have a really light side, but I don't want it to be pure white. That would be like it's maybe in a highlight or in like a big cast shadow or something like that. I'm going to grab maybe a 5H. We'll put a little bit of value over here. Much harder pencil. I'm pushing with the same level of weight. And that's why we have a pencil set, right? You could do this with all one pencil if you really wanted to, but then all the effort comes from your wrist. The reason we have a pencil set is that I can push with the same level of weight on my wrist, but get a completely different value. Okay, I'm going to throw a cast shadow on here. Again, I'm going to jump back to a pretty heavy pencil. This is a 6B. It's always darkest toward the very edge. And then it kind of fades out from there. I'm just pressing a little lighter and softer. Okay. Now at this point, it feels pretty three-dimensional. Now I can go back in and start really hammering down on these fine details, and that's what I'm going to do. But again, as you're working on your project, think about jumping around back and forth between your pencils. Don't just stick to one now, right? You spent all this time jumping around on these pencils. Go ahead and keep switching it up, right? So a shadow for this facet, right, over here in the shadows here, a heavier shadow might be like a 6B or a 5B, something like that. But a shadow over here in the lighter values might only be an HB, right? Same shadow, perceived very differently, right? So again, take your time and have fun with it. That's the whole idea. This is supposed to be more meditative. If you feel like you're really struggling, you might be trying too hard. I know it sounds silly, but truly, contact me, reach out to me, let me know that you're struggling. I might have a good suggestion or a good tip for you here and there. But notice, mine's pretty scratchy looking, right? Does not need to be this perfect rendition of a jelly jar or whatever object you choose. Take your time with it, right? This is much more about trying to master three-dimensionality as opposed to perfection, right? So take your time, have fun with it. If you have questions, definitely reach out to me and let me help you, and you're gonna do just fine. All right, talk to you later, guys.